And in that moment, I felt so completely broken, completely lost, like I was asking for something that obviously didn't exist. This week's episode is one of the most personal episodes I've ever shared on this podcast because today I want to tell you the story behind the story. I've shared pieces of my healing journey before. I've talked about Guillain-Barré and I've talked about my autoimmune diseases. I've talked about perimenopause and we've talked about nervous system healing. But what I haven't shared fully is what those years actually felt like. The fear, the grief, the frustration, the constant searching, the years spent trying to figure out why my body seemed to be falling apart all of a sudden. And most importantly, what I wish someone had told me much sooner. Because if you're listening to this and you're exhausted, frustrated, overwhelmed, wondering why nothing seems to be working the way you want it to, I think parts of my story might feel pretty familiar to you. I was 28 years old, and at the time I was working as a dental hygienist. Life felt pretty normal, busy, full, predictable, and then everything changed. After receiving a vaccine for work, I developed Guillain-Barré Syndrome. Within days, I became completely paralyzed from the eyes down. 1 week, I was living my normal life, and the next, I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't walk, I couldn't lift my arms. I couldn't speak or swallow normally. I couldn't produce tears or saliva. Pretty much I couldn't even care for any of my own basic needs. And when something like that happens, you don't just lose physical function. You lose all your certainty. You lose trust. You lose the assumption that tomorrow will look like today. I spent many weeks in the hospital and months recovering, learning how to talk and walk again, just learning how to use my body again. And for a while, I honestly believed that if and when I recovered, my life would just go back to normal. But it didn't. The paralysis did improve, but my health really didn't. In many ways, it was really just the beginning, not the end, like I thought it would be. Because after Guillain-Barré, it felt like my body never truly settled again. Symptoms appeared, then more symptoms, all new symptoms, fatigue and pain and severe digestive issues, sleep issues, hormonal issues, inflammation and autoimmune flares. And after a life of really avoiding all unnecessary doctor's appointments, I became a professional answer chaser. Lots of doctors, lots of specialists and lab works, supplements and protocols, new nutrition plans and elimination diets, functional medicine, conventional medicine, more supplements and protocols. I was really trying anything and everything because I so desperately wanted my life back. Some of those things helped and some didn't, but here's the hard part. None of them were creating the breakthrough I was really searching and hoping for. And because I kept approaching healing like a problem that I could just solve if I would work hard enough. And if you're a high-achieving woman, I bet you probably understand and relate to that mindset. I thought healing was just another project, another goal, another thing that I could conquer, but healing doesn't work that way. Then came another layer, perimenopause. And honestly, that was the point. That was when I really started questioning myself and everything. My fatigue became so much heavier, almost unbearable. My brain fog was getting worse. My patience had really disappeared. My emotions felt so unpredictable. My confidence dropped really low. My libido disappeared, and I didn't feel like myself anymore at all in really any part of my life. And what made it even harder was that no one was connecting the dots with me. I felt like I was carrying so much: autoimmune issues, hormonal issues, stress, life, work, family responsibilities, and somehow still expected to function as if nothing was wrong. And I kept thinking, maybe I just need a different supplement. Maybe that'll fix it. Maybe I need a different doctor. Maybe I need a different hormone protocol. Maybe I just need to try harder, push harder. Maybe I'm missing something. And what I didn't realize was that I was missing something, but it wasn't another supplement. It wasn't another diet or another protocol. It wasn't even a different doctor or a different diagnosis. There was one moment in particular that I still remember so clearly. By this point, years had passed since I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré and recovered from that. I had been through countless doctor's appointments and tests, countless attempts to figure out what was happening inside my body. My joint pain had become so severe that doing simple things like fixing my hair or doing my makeup or just cutting food was pretty painful. I was exhausted all the time, not just tired, exhausted in a way that felt impossible to explain to someone who wasn't living it. And maybe the hardest part was that I didn't feel like myself anymore. I had overcome so much in my life. I had worked really hard. I had built a totally different career at this point. I had pushed through challenges, yet somehow I still couldn't figure out how to just feel better. I remember sitting in my rheumatologist's office during what was probably my fourth or fifth visit. At that point, I had started taking an immunosuppressant, and for the first time, my labs were actually showing something. There was finally a diagnosis, a marker, some evidence, something medicine could point to and say, here, this is the problem. And honestly, I thought, again, that was going to be the answer. I thought once we found the thing, we'd fix the thing, right? And I'd finally get my life back. The medication, it was helping some with the pain, but I still felt pretty terrible. I was still struggling a lot. I was still really exhausted and wondering why I felt so disconnected and different. And I remember sitting there crying, not because of the diagnosis, but because I was scared. I was scared that this was as good as it was going to get. Scared that I would spend the rest of my life feeling this way. And I looked at him and I said, I just need someone to connect the dots. We have to be missing something. And I'll never forget the look on his face. He was kind and he wasn't dismissive, but he looked at me with a mixture of pity and uncertainty, almost like he had no idea what else to tell me. And in that moment, I felt so completely broken, completely lost, like I was asking for something that obviously didn't exist. And this was just how my life was going to be from then on. What I didn't realize is that we weren't missing a diagnosis. We weren't missing a supplement or another medication. We were missing the fact that my body had spent decades living in survival mode. And no one was talking about that part. What I wish someone had told me years ago is this: a body that feels unsafe cannot fully receive any of the healing that you're trying to give it. At the time, I thought my symptoms were the problem. Now I understand they were just signals. They were information. It was my body trying to communicate with me, protect me. It was adapting to years of pressure and years of overfunctioning, years of people pleasing and years of trying to prove myself, years of just surviving. And the truth is this: you can take the best supplements and work with the best doctors. You can dial in your nutrition and support your hormones, and those things absolutely matter. They matter a lot. But if your body is still believing that it's living in danger, it will continue prioritizing survival over repair. And that realization is what changed everything for me. The biggest shifts in my healing journey weren't actually the supplements or the diets or the protocols. They were the things that felt far less dramatic. They were deeper and harder for me to see and accept. As someone who wants a clear answer and a direct path, I had a hard time buying into this at first. It was learning boundaries, learning rest, learning to stop trying to earn my worth through productivity, learning to disappoint people sometimes, learning to listen to my body before it screamed out of turn, learning to trust myself, learning to create a life that it felt safe to live inside. And over time, things began changing. Not overnight and not all at once, slowly. My body started responding very differently. The tools I had been using began working differently. My energy finally started improving. My symptoms became much more manageable, and I felt so much more grounded, more present, more myself finally. Not because I found a magic solution, but because my body was no longer spending every ounce of energy just trying to survive. If you're listening right now and you're exhausted, you've tried everything. If you're frustrated, if you're wondering why healing feels so much harder than everyone says it should, I want you to hear this. You're not failing. You're not broken. And your body is not betraying you. Your body may be simply carrying more than it was ever designed to carry. And sometimes healing begins not with doing another thing, but with creating enough safety for your body to finally exhale. Before you go, I want to leave you with one more thought. If you've spent years trying to fix your body, please know that your body may not need more fixing. It may need more safety first, because that was the shift that really did change everything for me. Not another supplement or another appointment or another protocol. It was in learning that my body wasn't working against me. It was doing everything it could to protect me, and maybe that's true for you too. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What part of my story felt most familiar to you? If you're realizing that you've been stuck in survival mode for years, make sure you download my free Back to You Blueprint link below. And before you leave, watch this video next. If you've been trying all the right things and still feel exhausted, that episode will help you understand why. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. We're talking about the hidden burnout that many of us midlife women normalize. Take a breath, trust your body, and let's rise together.